Aloha everyone, what is really good my dudes? Today is June 14th, 2021. We got another RuneScape update for y'all. Today we see a ninja strike as well as the 4th week in the Battle of the Monolith. So without any further ado, let's jump right into the video. Let's go.
Cats is the illest. What you talking about, Willis?
Alright guys, before we jump into the game update, I just want to say that after a very long wait, RuneScape Mobile is finally launching this week, Thursday, June 17th. This is the full launch for mobile and Android. You can pre-register right now if you haven't already in the App Store or the Google Play Store, and I recommend you do so because there are some pre-register cosmetic rewards. Anyways, jumping right into today's game update, the Battle of the Monolith continues on. This time around, due to the most recent events, the Takhar have now turned against you. So you have to defend the dig site against wave and wave of Takhar. I personally would recommend that you send Thayrisk and Ziliana to the north barricade while you watch the one immediately to the south. And the far south one, send Nex and Hellware. You should never have to go down and check on how well the very far south one is doing, but you may occasionally need to help out Ziliana and Thayrisk while watching your own, and doing so you should have little trouble completing this week's set of waves. Anyways, next week we're going to get the final week, which is the epilogue to the Battle of the Monolith, and we're going to find out exactly where this is going to lead to. With that, we're going to now shift on gears over to the ninja strike. This time they're focusing on summoning familiars, so let's jump right into it. Starting off, there's a whole bunch of changes to the familiar behavior. Familiars will now return to players faster when they're stuck against terrain. Familiars that previously only fought in self-defense, such as bunyips and unicorns, can now be ordered to attack. They still won't attack by default. A new combat mode, summoning setting, will set your familiar to always attack your current target, attack only in self-defense, or never attack unless specifically commanded to. The duration of all familiars has been standardized to increments of 16 minutes. 16, 32, 48, 64, and so on. Some outliers have been rebalanced and had their duration increased or decreased where appropriate. Dungeoneering and Stealing Creation familiars will last for 64 and 32 minutes respectively. The Anachronia totem of summoning now increases all familiar duration by 16 minutes instead of 10%. All familiars except Spirit Pack and Prayer Pigs may now store their respective scrolls. The following familiars can now auto-fire their scrolls: Spirit Spider, Macaw, Spirit Terrorbird, Ibis, Fruit Bat, Nightmare Muspa, Ghast, Spirit Warpig, and Ravenous Locust. Some familiars can no longer have their auto fire set. Previously, these familiars could set a rate but would never actually fire. Legendary pets with a Beast of Burden ability can now be turned into Beast of Burden by left clicking or tapping the pouch. Next up, they've done a bunch of changes to the familiar UI. The follower details has been updated. Various icons have been replaced with new graphics. The familiar special point is now green, the same color as it is on the action bar variant. They added a button to set the special attack auto fire rate and removed the right click option to do the same thing on the special points bar. Added a new button to directly access familiar settings from the settings interface. Added a new button to store or take scrolls with 4 different options: Store Max, Take All, Store X, and Take X. Added a new information panel which, when expanded, displays all information regarding the familiar which could usually be found on the pouch. Added hover/tap tooltips to various interface components. The indicator for scrolls remaining in the backpack and held by the familiar have been made more prominent. Interface components will now auto-adjust when resizing the interface. These changes also apply to the Beast of Burden inventory view, where you'll find a new collapsible panel for the relevant buttons. They've added 2 new settings to automatically close and open the familiar details interface when a familiar spawns or despawns. On mobile, the Beast of Burden inventory now has bigger slots for better visibility. With few exceptions, despawning familiars will no longer automatically close open interfaces. And familiar interaction settings can now be found in the main settings menu under both combat and skilling options. Next up, we got some general quality of life when it comes to the familiars. Tooltips for the pouches now display the level required, familiar duration, type of familiar, its abilities, the scroll, and the effect, which combat mode is enabled by default, and have highlighted keywords. Familiar scrolls have a similar tooltip touch-up and now display the familiar they belong to and how many special move points they consume. Familiar scrolls have also been renamed to their respective familiars. For example, Death from Above is now Ripper Demon Scroll Death from Above. Dungeoneering and Stealing Creation familiars have also had their scroll and pouch information updated. They can also hold their scrolls now and will be affected by the Anachronia Summoning Totem. Various familiar buttons can now be dragged to the action bar. Give to Beast of Burden, take from Beast of Burden, dismiss and call familiar, use scroll, attack, and renew. When a familiar despawns, any scrolls it was holding will be sent to your backpack. If there's no space, it will go to your bank. If there's none in your bank, it will be dropped on the floor. They've added an info box message for various erroneous actions, such as casting scrolls for a familiar when there are none available. The term summoning special points has been changed to familiar special points. And finally, Abyssal familiars now use the banknote terminology rather than certs. And that is it for your main game update. We're going to now shift on over to the patch notes and see what's been changed with today's update, so let's go ahead and check it out. Fixed an issue causing some areas to render overly dark or pitch black. Action bar icons will now update properly when removing abilities or switching between pages. The empty spaces and slidey block puzzles will now appear correctly. Fixed a crash when placing walk markers, and one that occurred on Snapdragon 865 devices. Fixed a number of issues with on-screen keyboard input for iOS. Item stat counts now appear for Samsung Galaxy S 2021 and Note 20. Players on Intel GPUs will no longer see black or invisible textures in compatibility mode. RuneScape is now available on iOS versions 14.0 and above. Improved point light brightness on mobile. Improved the speed of cache validation and added contextual keyboards and autocorrection on keyboards for iOS. Moving on to the marketplace, the option to purchase X amount has been re-added to the Oddment store. Silver members can once again upgrade to gold via the Bond store on the marketplace. Players are now required to enter a bank PIN if accessing the marketplace through the lobby, and the marketplace now loads correctly on Mac OS. Finally, we got some other fixes. Fixed the font spacing issue for some strings, removed overlapping text on the report player interface in the lobby, corrected an issue that prevented the create button from activating in the Gizmo shell interface, prevented client stuttering after exiting the cutscene where magic stick appears. Players can no longer receive unlimited beans during the Manor Farm tutorial, reworked cube maps resulting in more natural looking cosmetics with better surface reflections. Social tabs in the lobby of the desktop client now extend to the correct height. And finally, they corrected the text for the Sunshade achievement, which previously stated 14 floors instead of 25. That is it for your patch notes. Links to everything discussed in this video will be down in the description below. Head on over there to check them out. With that, I'm going to wrap up the video. If you enjoyed it, hit that like button. If you're not subscribed yet and you want to stay up to date on all things RuneScape related, then hit that subscribe button. I appreciate you watching. I am out. Aloha.